Welcome to WhoDooTV. I'm Hoosier, and today we have the TKO panel from Emerald City Comic Con for you. Check this out.
You are now watching WhoDooTV.
I'm Z Chun. I'm the co-founder, publisher, and president of the company.
My name is Sebastian Garner, and I'm the editor-in-chief of TKO. Yay.
Excellent. So one thing I say all the time is it's a lot of work and really hard to make a really bad comic. So it's that much harder to make a really good one. So Z, what convinced you to start a company? Why did you do this to yourself?
Why did I do this to myself? So we started this company a couple years ago, and we launched just in December with 4 titles by some of my favorite creators. And comics were my first love. That's how I learned to tell stories. I wanted to be a comic writer, a comic artist when I was a kid, and then started getting into independent film in high school. And there was just a moment where I was like, you get to pick one of these 2 really difficult things to do. And I picked independent film, but I always wanted to get back into comics. And a couple of years ago, some things came together. I reconnected with a friend and mentor, Salvatore Simeone, who had always wanted to start something in entertainment. He's a big comic book fan, and it just, all these things kind of aligned to create TKO. I brought on Sebastian very quickly afterwards.
That's awesome. Sebastian, you've shepherded a lot of books as editor at Marvel and at Image, and you've written some of your own. What convinced you to come on as editor-in-chief of this new venture?
When Z reached out and he told me basically what he just told you all, like, independent filmmaker, and it's in film, it's in TV, and starting to talk about a comic book company. And it was around the time where a lot of comic book publishers, new ones were coming up, like that Studio, Aftershock, Vault started. So there was a lot of that going on. So I was, obviously hard to talk about it. But it was really early on in the conversation where I just spoke to Z about what he wanted to do, and I got a picture of how serious they were and how willing they were to do something like big, like take it really, really far. So I was at a point in my career where I was like, I kind of know what I'm doing now, sort of in comics. Obviously lying to myself. But I felt like it was one of those moments that like will never come again. So I was like, I want to be a part of this. Like, I need to come on board.
That's awesome. So these comics they're all released at the same time. Every issue, 1 through 6, is released all at the same time. Meaning, this is really the first series that's released that you can binge as soon as it's released, right? As soon as the first issue is released. Why did you what went into that decision? Like that's unheard of in comics. I think, at this point. Yeah.
So when we started this company, we started with 3 kind of guiding principles. At every stage where we were deciding on the business model and the creative model, it was about, we asked ourselves, what is good for creators, what is good for the fans, and what is good for comics? And every single decision that we made kind of came out of that. So we do things a little differently at TKO. We, first of all, we binge release our books, like Dennis mentioned, which means that the second that our first 4 titles were released, the entire story arc was actually available right away. So all 6 issues of the books are available. That's how we're going to continue to release our books in this binge release format. We felt that for people who are used to watching things on Netflix and Hulu, they don't really want to wait 6 to 9 months. I mean, God willing, 6 or 9 months for a comic series to finish out. So we were patient. We sat on this idea for a couple of years. We've been working, grinding out these books. And in December, it was time to release them. So we binge released our books. Second thing that we do is we offer our books in multiple formats. So we know that different people like to read their books in different formats. I personally, growing up reading comics, I love individual issues. I have friends who maybe only read trades, and some people read things digitally. So from the second that we dropped these books, everything was available, 6 issues in a box set that kind of goes on your shelf, trade paperback, and digital. And all these books are printed oversized. So they're about an inch and a half bigger than regular comics. We found for a lot of people who are interested in individual issues, they had a trouble figuring out where to put them on their bookshelf. So this was a solution that we came up with. Third thing that we're doing is the first issue of all of our books are available for free to read off of our website. You can actually find all of them for free to read off of Comixology. So issues number 1 of Sarah, 7 Deadly Sins, Goodnight Paradise, Fearsome Dr. Fang, they're all available to read for free, the first issue. And the fourth thing is that we are going around Diamond, which we can talk about more.
Yeah. Wow, a lot of fancy distribution models over here. Yeah. So this is obviously a crowd that's receptive to talking about Diamond. So I think we can go into that. I mean, for those that don't know, Diamond is the major distributor of comics for basically all comics all across the country. And there's also a Diamond UK. And TKO is shipping their books separately, not through Diamond, which means completely different platform. Shops are ordering it in a completely different way. Yeah. What made you make that decision, which is pretty monumental for comics, I think?
Well, I think as Sebastian and I started talking more about the way the comics are distributed, and I started talking to Sal, my co-founder, about it, it didn't really make sense for us to go through Diamond. I mean, we have a really robust infrastructure where, in terms of fulfillment, orders, shipping, all that stuff we can handle ourselves. And we also wanted to put store owners back in control of the ordering process. The way that we work, this is a little inside baseball, but we offer a 50% discount for wholesalers off the cover price. In the US, we pay for shipping. For UK orders, it's the same thing. International orders, it's also 50% off wholesale price. And vendors pay shipping, but if it's above a certain amount, we'll pay for shipping as well. So it's a really great deal for the vendors. But the main thing is that the vendors are not forced or pressured to overorder. So we have a vendor portal, which is they can order very easily online, like it was 2019, where you can just put in the number of books that you want. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you order 1 book or 100 books. It's the same level playing field for any comic book store. And you get your books within 2 to 5 days if you're in the US. So at the 6-week mark, I mean, what was amazing to us was we found that some vendors had sold out and reordered and gotten their books back in stock 2, 3, in some cases almost 4 times. So instead of selling and buying stuff on a monthly basis, it's really, you know, the store owners can buy. I always say, like, because people have asked about returns, and it's literally just never come up because people can buy the amount of books that they think conservatively they can sell. They sell out. They know that they can get the books back on their shelves within the matter of a couple days. So that's what we did. Okay, so that's the business side of things. That's the business side of things. And we can do that because, you know, instead of having a middleman like Diamond, we can pass those savings on to the stores. Philosophically, Sebastian and I and everyone at the company feel that, I mean, Diamond is essentially the sole distributor of comics in the US. And just philosophically, I don't believe that any art form should have a single way of reaching its audience. It doesn't incentivize the distributor to do better, and it doesn't incentivize them through healthy competition. So that was part of the reasoning behind it as well.
Makes total sense, and I think we can all agree that there's some problems in the current system. So it's pretty interesting to see somebody try something new. All right, well, I thought we could talk a little bit about the books themselves, since they are beautiful, and we have them right here. And we also have the writer, 2 of them right here, as a matter of fact. So can you tell me a little bit about the books that you're writing?
Sure, Sebastian, why don't you talk about just each book and the creative teams, and I'm going to just open up one of these books while you
That's great.
see what they're like on the inside.
So right on the screen right now is Sarah, one of the titles we led with, written by Garth Ennis and art by Steve Epping, colors by Elizabeth Breitweiser, and lettering by the wonderful Rob Steen. All of our waves are designed by Jared Fletcher, who's a wonderful designer and is responsible for putting the unique look of our line together. So Sarah is a war story set on the Eastern Front in World War II. The main character, the titular Sarah, is part of an all-female sniper brigade for the Red Army. for the Soviets, who are frozen in this like really horrible winter during the winter of 1941, when the Nazis were just marching all across the Soviet Union. And this is quasi based on a true story. There's one picture that Garth sent us. Was basically his pitch was just one picture. If you Google like 700 confirmed kills in one photo, you see it's a black and white photo of these smiling Russian women, some as young as one girl was no older than 12, all the way up to their 40s, and they're just like laden with medals. And famously, the Russian army threw everything they had at the Nazi war machine, men, women, and children. And particularly women were said to be more patient for lining up shots, so they would wait hours, sometimes days, to line up a perfect shot. And when Garth told us that story and sent us that picture, we were just like, we have to do this like immediately. It was just wonderful. And we were very lucky that at the time, I happened to think, why not pair one of comics' greatest writers with one of the best working artists, like Steve Epting. It takes a real genius to have ideas like that. So let's just put two and two together, like the best and chocolate and peanut butter. So that worked out, and it's quite a good book.
I love that book so much. I can't say enough good things about it.
Following up on that is Goodnight Paradise, which is a crime noir murder mystery set in the population of Venice Beach in California. This comes from Josh Dysart, who's a wonderful writer, Alberto Ponticelli. They previously collaborated on Unknown Soldier, which is another wonderful book. Colors by Julia Brosco, and lettering by Stephen Wands. This book is a really personal book for Josh. He had, I think, been talking about doing this in some way, shape, or form for almost 10 years. Josh himself lives in Venice Beach. He is a tireless advocate and fighter for literally every good cause in the world, particularly the gentrification of Venice Beach and the kind of shifting out of the indigenous, but the local population is largely homeless runaways. That really bothered him.
And he was actually, while he was writing about gentrification in Venice Beach, he was
himself gentrified
by,
yeah.
I think, Snap.
Yeah, by Snapchat, which is featured prominently in the book. But our main character there is Eddie. He's down on his luck, down and out, and just kind of spends all his days drinking on the beach, and that's all he wants to do. But one night he finds the body of a young runaway that he just saw alive, and not well, but alive, just a couple hours earlier. And he's kind of the only one who cares enough to try and figure out what happened to her. So he goes on this detective quest, as you might say, which takes him all across Venice Beach into all the, it's a sun-fueled, place that's now booming with tourism and Snapchat, and money is pouring in, and people are pouring out. And this was a story that Josh was so adamant wanting to do, and wanting to do it his way, wanting to was very specific, this can't be something that it isn't, the story is too important. It's one of those things you just do once in your life. So we were really proud to be able to do, to be able to be the portal for that story. And it's one of the things it's one of the hardest things I've ever worked on, and I think it's one of the things I'll be proud of. So Josh pitched us the story, and I had heard that he had a homeless detective story. And you don't know what the tone of something like that's going to be until you actually sit down in person. And talking to Josh, I was really moved by just how much he cared about the story and how humane and how much beauty and kind of brutality the story contained. I will say that when he sent me the scripts, so the first script, he sent me the script for it. I was on lunch. I was working on Gotham as a writer at the time. I was like, it's my lunch break. I'll read what Josh sent me. And I started reading it in my office. And there's a moment in the first issue where I just started tearing up. And I was like, I'm crying at the office during my lunch hour. I'm going to close the door. And that happened literally every single time Josh sent a script to me, to the point where by the end I was like, all right, Josh sent a script. We're just going to go into my office and pull down all the shades and just really make sure that no one's coming in here for a little bit. Time for a good cry.
Yeah, time for a good little big cry at the end of the day.
Yeah. You can tell when someone's been living with the story for so long that it just flows out. I will say I was surprised that my title suggestion, Sherlock Homeless, not received more gusto, but I think that's the only time.
I think we're all pretty mad at you
Yeah.
You know?
Z is like tearing up.
I'm in my office crying. You're like, oh, but Sherlock Holmes.
I was like, am I willing to lose this job over this joke? Apparently I was.
So I'm opening up all these books right now, and I was just realizing that we have enough of these single issues. Everyone in the audience can get one. So I'm just going to, Stephen, will you come and actually hand these out? I'll keep opening them up, but everyone should just grab one of them, or you can just hand them down. But I would love for you guys to just hold them in your hands because they're oversized. We're really proud of the printing of them, and we think that they're all really fun. And they're all pretty different as well.
Z, you want to talk about one of the next two books?
Sure. I co-wrote The Fearsome Dr. Fang, which is a kind of tongue-in-cheek action-adventure reimagining of the Yellow Peril stories from the Golden Age. So it's about you kind of ask the question, what if the Fu Manchu Yellow Peril bad guy from those stories was actually a good guy and had to take on the guise of the Yellow Peril bad guy in order to infiltrate the criminal underworld. So it's a big, fun, globe-trotting adventure. It starts in San Francisco and ends in the wastelands of Mongolia. We're really proud of the book. Dan McDade did the artwork. I co-wrote it with Mike Weiss, who was one of my best friends. Daniela Miwa did the colors, and Steve Wands did the lettering. And of course, it was edited by Sebastian. The Seven Deadly Sins is actually the book that got me into this whole thing, which is I knew that I wanted to do a comic book, and I'd written The Seven Deadly Sins, and I thought, well, maybe I'll try to find an artist and put something together, maybe I'll kickstart something, and that led to this 2-year adventure where a Chain Reaction, where now we have a comic book publisher. So it's a Western, it's about 7 death row criminals that go on a suicide mission into Comancheria. It's a lot of characters we haven't seen in like shows like Gunsmoke. It's a pretty diverse crew, and it's a pretty fun, bloody, balls to the wall Western. So Artyom Trakanov, who is a Russian artist, did the artwork for it.
So good.
I have never met him in person. I've never talked to him on the phone. But he is the hardest working guy I know. Julia Brusco did the colors for this. She also did the colors for Goodnight Paradise, and Jared K. Fletcher did the lettering. And Jared really did all of the logo and title as well. If you guys don't know Jared's work, please check him out. He designed the covers for Paper Girls, which is how we know him. When Paper Girls came out, I was like, whatever that comic is, that's like across the comic book store, I want that thing. It stood out so well. That's what we wanted for our books.
He's had an amazing career. Yeah. See, you're a writer on Gotham. You've written for TV and film, and this was your first foray into writing for comics.
Yeah.
Did you notice any big differences? Were there anything that you thought were more difficult, less difficult, sort of just adjustments you had to make?
Yeah, Sebastian was really helpful. Coming from film and TV, I just didn't know the formatting, and there were times where some of his notes were like, in one panel, like someone can't punch someone in the face, jump out the window, and land on a car, and then run down the street. Like, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. I think that for me, what was really satisfying about the comic writing process was when you get first of all, writing a script is really just for one person, for the artist to look at. It's such an intimate way of writing something as opposed to writing a TV script, which then gets sent out to 400 people and all the heads of production and stuff. So
it's like a love letter.
Yeah, it's like, Danny, I know that you like doing this. I know you like drawing buildings on fire. So there you go. You're welcome. And then getting the artwork in, it was just always the best part of my day.
Well, on TKO, when Z called me and was like, build a line with us. Here's what we want. Here are the stories we're looking at. We had Seven Deadly Sins and the Fearsome Dr. Kong that Z wrote, but then there's who's out there? Who can we talk to? I worked with Garth at Marvel, so I had a little bit of rapport with him, so I was able to call him up and introduce him to Z, and we started talking, and it came of that, and the same with Joshua Dysart, who I had not worked with before, but I always wanted to, and knew, just kind of, comic book scene, each other. So kind of getting everyone in the room and pitching artists and creators on TKO, kind of trying to explain to them what we have explained to you now, and then we can actually point at stuff and be like, hey, it works, we did it. But at the start, obviously, it was just kind of like telling people we might want to do a comic book company, and what can they give us? So as an editor, you're kind of the arbiter of taste. You're curating a line. So these are books that I feel very strongly for, but I also thought beyond my own personal taste would have, like marketing power, like people would want to read these. This sounds like something interesting. So you're kind of using your own tastes, intelligence, hopefully to some degree, to like gauge what do people want, like what are comics or stories or characters that would be good to have out there. That's something I did at Marvel, where it's superhero stuff mostly. It's something I did for as a freelance editor for writers and creators who publish through Image, and helping them get their creator-owned books off the ground and keeping them in line and rolling and coming out on time. And then, obviously, as an editor, you're also, working with writers to get the scripts ready, and you're working with the artists to produce the art. You're doing, art direction for the most part, making sure that, that it makes sense, that you can read it, that, we have to tweak this a little bit here or there. Work with the colorists, work with the letterer, yell at everyone to get their stuff in on time.
It's a big one.
Do the lettering, do the proofing, do the, just keep all the plates spinning is a thing we often say. But it's an exciting job because it's so many different, like people always say, oh, I wish I had a creative job. It's like editing is like, you're not doing any one thing, you're doing all a little bit. So it is something that I was just really excited to be able to put this together with the help of everyone.
And in terms of this company, Sebastian was there from the very beginning, and a lot of the creative teams were really built through us talking about who, you pitching people who you thought were going to be really right for the material. And the other part of it is just, it's building the slate and trying to figure out how do we make it so that there's in every wave of books that there's something that really appeals to everybody. That there's we don't have 3 mysteries and one sci-fi book. It's just creating something that's diverse enough that people will, hopefully there's one or 2 books, maybe 3, maybe 4 that people would want to pick up.
And speaking to that, your first slate has a bunch, none of the books have almost any overlap, right? Completely different. So is there a kind of book that you want to do at TKO or a kind of book that you don't want to do at TKO? Do you see an identity in terms of the kinds of stories that you're putting out, or is it just anything that is good? It's just
the one thing that we don't do is we don't do any superhero books, and that is, we love superhero books. I grew up reading superhero comics, and that's what got me into comics in the first place. But that's well represented everywhere else, and we just felt we didn't really want to do that. We look for new takes on established genres. So something like Goodnight Paradise, it has the bones of a murder mystery, but at the same time, it's entryway into that type of story that I had never seen before. Same with Sarah. It's a war story, but it has this team of female Russian snipers at the center of it. One thing that I should also say about Sebastian is he is a writer himself, so he co-created Shirtless Bear Fighter and created Scales and Scoundrels, and it was really nice to have somebody who understands the creative process, not just in terms of giving notes, but also how you can live inside that and some possibilities of how you can actually change that and some creative solutions.
That's awesome. That sounds great. So you guys have the first slate is out. The second slate has been announced.
Yeah.
Is that right? Can we talk about those books?
Sure. We have the first ever Jeff Lemire, Gabriel Walta collaboration. Jeff Lemire did Black Hammer.
I'm just personally very excited about that one. So.
Yeah, and you can follow us on @TKO Presents across Twitter and Instagram, where we do kind of exclusive art drops and art sneak peeks. So first ever Jeff Lemire, Gabriel Walta collaboration. It is a sci-fi story. An event happens on a colony ship, kills all the adults, and it's up to the onboard AI to raise the children. So it takes place over the course of a number of months as they're trying to find their way. Gabriel Walta is hand coloring using watercolor, and it is gorgeous. So really proud of that book. We have a first ever Roxane Gay McDoyle collaboration. Jordi Belair is doing the colors for that. Ariana Mar is doing the letters for that. It's an all-female creative team. We have a book with Natalie Chaidez, who is a TV writer. She is the showrunner of Queen of the South.
Oh, wow.
She is paired with Andy Ballinger from Southern Cross fame. And we have Lauren doing the colors for that, and Sergei Lapointe doing the letters. And we have the fourth book is a book by Stephen Salvatore Simeone. Nicole Nick Varela is doing the artwork for that. Ruth Redmond is doing the colors, and Ariana Mar is also doing the letters for that as well.
What's the name of that one?
Eve of Extinction, and
Eve of Extinction.
it is a survival horror story where there's a virus that affects only men. So it's about a woman and her daughter and her daughter's adopted mother as they kind of have to band together over the course of a short amount of time to kind of escape.
That's awesome. And
It's really fun.
that sounds great. What was the name of the Roxane Gay?
That's called The Banks. The Roxane Gay McDoyle book is about 3 generations of women who are master thieves in Chicago. And they band together to pull off their greatest heist and right a wrong that is from one of their pasts.
That sounds excellent.
It's really fun. Yeah. July, August of this year. They'll be released and they'll be binge released. So you'll have
All at the same time as well?
Yeah, all 4 will be released at the same time. All 6 issues will be available at the same time. Starting in about 2 weeks, we'll start doing some teases through different news outlets, and then when the books drop, again, we'll have the first issues available for free to read off of our site in Comixology. So we stand behind our books, and that's why we offer these first issues for free.
See, something I wanted to talk about a little bit, because I noticed it in your books, and I wasn't sure if this was intentional or not, but probably it wasn't. Well, I mean, with dealing with the yellow peril, sort of pulpy yellow peril stuff, and then the Western genres, these are 2 genres that have historically been or have a tendency to be pretty racist, and you turn them into something that was turn them on their head, decidedly not, right? I was just wondering if that was something you were intending to do, or...
It was just a desire to, as a Chinese American person, I was born in the U.S., but you grow up and you see depictions of Chinese people, and Fu Manchu is not like my favorite depiction of Chinese people. Yeah, Christopher Lee kind of getting so to be able to turn that stereotype on its head was something that I think I was really excited about, and to do it in this really fun way, so it didn't feel like, here's my political medicine that you're going to have to eat. Like, that it's a fun adventure story that just has this twist to it, where Dr. Feng is like a badass good guy who pretends to be a villain. That was kind of the origin for that. And Seven Deadly Sins, I've just always loved Westerns, and at this time period, I did a lot of research into this time period, which was a couple of years after the end of the Civil War, where slaves sometimes were working as sharecroppers, sometimes on the same plantations that they were slaves at. So the backdrop was really interesting to me, and it was a chance to tell the story of all these characters I hadn't ever seen in a Western. And we like to think of it as a Western, but a Western containing characters that you've never really experienced in this context before.
I think that's pretty subversive. I mean, there's that old James Baldwin quote that I mentioned. You're as a person of color in this country, you're watching Westerns, and you're hoping for the Gary Cooper to kill the Indians, and you realize you're the Indian. So it felt very intentional on your part. I wasn't sure. So that's awesome. Well, I think right now I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So, does anyone have any questions? If you want to come up to that microphone there, we'd love to hear them. I encourage whatever questions about whatever.
It doesn't even have to be about TKO. It can just be factoids.
Sure. You can just quiz
Google it
us.
on my phone.
You can just quiz us. It can be about the distribution or about the creative stuff. Looks like we've got a couple coming.
So one of the things I was noticing when I was looking through the ceremony was that it definitely feels like I was kind of, it feels like a hero comic. There's a lot of like French and other comics that I don't like. And I also like the fact that there was violence in it, but it wasn't like overly gratuitous. There's a lot of regard to this and other stuff at Avatar, which frankly just sometimes was a little queasy. My question is, kind of what is your mission around like how do you pick violence, how do you pick sexuality? Because I think a lot of American comic companies struggle with that. I'm just kind of curious, like, if you guys have a mission around like how you're going to portray certain things.
I mean, I think it's on a case-by-case basis. You know, a lot of it has to do with the creators that we work with and picking people that we feel like handle things like sex and violence in a way that we feel is responsible. I mean, there is a dead runaway at the beginning of Midnight Paradise, and it was hours of conversations between us and Josh and the artist and the colorist. About how to depict it in a way that didn't feel cheap and it didn't feel exploitative. And actually, if you read that panel, you don't actually see anything. Everything is inferred. But there are a lot of, you know, I was really proud at that moment to be having those conversations and to be a part of that. You know, that we would even be able to have those conversations about responsibility when it came to literally 2 panels of the comic. But it really, a lot of it has to do with picking creators that you can have that dialogue with, and that you want to, you know, are doing this because they want to tell the best story possible. And
Yeah, just have the time to actually get on the phone together, you know, because we're doing the binge release model, we're not going to print anything until it's done. Be like, okay, let's hold on for a second, we should really talk about this, as opposed to like, you know, regular comics monthly. By Friday, everything has to be to print. So you're under a lot of pressure, which means that not only are you probably not going to have that conversation, you might not even put yourself in a position where something like that could happen in a story, even though there is a powerful way of, you know, in this instance, making that page so it's not gratuitous, it's not exploitative. But you also show the loss of a life and how it kickstarts this poor man's like desire to see justice, some kind of justice done. As opposed to like, I don't think there's anything like, we haven't had any situations where, you know, like sex is a big thing in a book, but that's something that we want to also not shy away from, but also not like exploit in a creepy, weird way. I think again, it really depends on what the book is, what the tone of the book is, who the artist is, how they want to approach it, and to just have a conversation. Like, I don't think anything should be off limits. Like in the second series and second wave, we have Even Extinction, which is like a horror book. So there's, you know, it gets pretty horrific, and there's some violence in that. But again, it's like it fits the tone of that book, and it's not something where you're reading, you know, like if Dr. Fong is an example that's very pulpy. It's very, you know, there's action, there's adventure, it's Indiana Jonesy. Some dude falls off a cliff. Like if you logistically think about it, like that dude's probably not going to survive, but you don't dwell on it. But if you turn the page in Dr. Fong and like Fong is like punching a dude's like heart out, showing it to him, that would be weird. That's not the tone we established for that book. So as long as you just keep that in mind, I think that we can do a lot, and I think, you know, art should be allowed to do that. But yeah, there's not like a hard and fast set of rules we have there. We really want to cross those bridges when we get there.
Looks great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in mainstream comics, a lot of the serialization stories, they kind of use it to like market their books as they're going along. I was just wondering if your binge approach to releasing comics, how you guys kind of try to engage with the comics audience and make sure that you're still, you know, keeping the enthusiasm for TKO presents as you're going between releases.
I mean, we don't think of the release of the books and the marketing of the books as something you do right away at the beginning of it, and then you just hope that there's a long tail of awareness. Like, the awareness for the books, I mean, I think we've only scratched the surface of it, and it's a battle that we have to fight every single day. And the fact that the release dates are 6 months apart, I feel like it's just a question of making sure that there's still a dialogue about it. And part of me is, I mean, a lot of this was we're still at the beginning. We're kind of testing out different strategies, but so far, I mean, it's about trying to make people aware of it every single day via social media and word of mouth, and that's kind of been the strategy.
Thank you.
Alright. So I actually happen to be a comic retailer.
Okay.
I get what you're going for as far as the bid file. I think there's a market for that. Sounds to me more like a serialized graphic novel policy. I'm frankly kind of confused with the purpose of these things in my head right now, because if I'm honest, it feels to me like a comic book through no Laserdisc. This is just a big clunky through no parodies, and then not even sure why it exists.
Right. So we made them bigger because we wanted people to be able to see the artwork. They're oversized. I know that they don't necessarily fit into a long box, but for people who are not used to necessarily reading single issues, they go great on your shelf. So your question is that why are we publishing single issues? No, that's a good question. No, that's yeah. Honestly, because we found that, I grew up reading single issues, and I still have that collector mentality of really loving the look and feel of single issues, and I really like the way that a story is broken up when it's serialized, even if it's if it's binge released. Obviously, you're reading the whole story together, but there is something about the individual issues that still appeals to me because that's how I grew up reading them. In terms of the sales, the sales have been 50-50, like across the board. Doesn't matter what book it is. 50% of people are buying the single issues in the box set, and 50% are buying the trades, which we were actually not expecting. We thought that one would dominate over the other. But I think it's that there are certain people, even within the company, like Sebastian and I are longtime hardcore comic book fans, and we really enjoy the single issues. Cara McKenney, who does our creator outreach and creator relations, Salvatore Simeone, our CEO, they really are trade waiters, so they'll wait for the trades. I don't mind reading comics digitally, but I prefer reading them in print. And it was just we were looking at it and saying, well, why don't we provide it in any format that people would possibly want to read them in? And that was kind of the impetus for it.
And it's small of that.
Mm-hmm.
If these are sold in box sets, why doesn't each one have a PC?
That was because we were trying to figure, and there might be the possibility of, we want to stay limber, basically, and if there was the opportunity to sell them individually, then we could do that as well. There's a few, just being completely transparent, there's a few weird things like that on all of our books, and it was the process of trying to figure out, we wanted to be able to, this was kind of our decision of how we were going to roll things out, but we also wanted to have backup plans in place in case the audience and the readership did not, and the stores did not accept it. And so far, it's been good. So there's still there's stuff like the UPC at the back of it, which is like a little bit of a remnant of a fallback position.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So what store can you give a shout out to the store?
Yeah, it's all like
Good start. All right.
Hi, just
So can you say a little bit about it?
just to clarify the information you just said, you said the sales of the trade paper and the sales of the comic single is break even, so 50%, 50%, that's correct?
Not break even, but it's split almost exactly between the two.
Thank you. My question is, how do you guys marketing where the comics stores, the retailers? How you guys getting yourself to known by the comics store owners?
Yeah, when we started, actually, we were expecting to do a soft launch, and then we would bring on somebody to essentially be cold calling comic book stores. But within 48 hours of that initial Twitter thread that announced the company, we were contacted by estimates like 1/10 of the comic book stores in the U.S., which is a significant amount. It's also a significant amount of the stores that would probably stock, independent or non-big two comic books. And so we very quickly had to I was telling Dennis this. I mean, we as a company, we try to be very transparent about the way we do things to our creators, our fans. Even something like this. So, we had to really scramble to put together vendor relations and a director of vendor relations in place, and we did deals with all those stores, and we really listened to them. I mean, we started out, and I think we were too conservative in the way that we gave our discount. And what was great was we heard the feedback, and it was really like we heard the feedback in the morning. I got on the phone with Sal. We talked it over for 2 hours, and then we came up with this discount that vendors were really happy with, which was the 50% off and free shipping within the U.S. and making it super, super easy to order. So, we're a new company, but we like to think of, we have a lot of infrastructure in place that we can draw down upon. We also have the ability to make decisions really quickly because there's a small core of people who make those decisions. I think I did not answer your question at all.
I just want to understand this. You guys have the information instead of the comic stores all over North America because as I checked, only Diamond hold all the information. And since after 2016, they haven't released any comic stores and data around the United States.
I mean, we have the people who came to us, and then we have, we sign new stores every week, and a lot of that is just the awareness of us of word of mouth and from the knowledge that we have this discount, and the ability to order very easily. I do believe that as we roll out the second wave, we're going to be more active. And we launched only 3 months ago, so we are kind of turning to a more aggressive, active approach to it because this has been great, and the stores that have us are very happy, but I think we can do more.
Just last question from me. So you mentioned the policy you have the vendors and so on, so we have this 50% and free shipping. But the free shipping costs give you some financial pressures, since the United States being free shipping cost is actually not really cheap.
No, I mean we're okay. I mean we don't have to pay Diamond anything, and we print the. I mean, people have asked if we print on demand. We don't. I mean, we print at high volume, and it makes sense for us. I mean, we wouldn't do it if we were killing ourselves. Each time we should do it. Thank you. Thank you.
Just had a quick question. I know the 4 stories that you have out right now are pretty much self-contained stories. Much like other shows that you've written for, just like Gotham, have you come across, or would you consider a story that may be self-contained in itself, but have like a second season that you put out 6 months or a year later? Have you come across anything like that yet?
I mean, we like to think of, all these stories are self-contained as a first arc, and they have a beginning, middle, and end, but, they all have the ability to, one of the things that we want when we talk to our creators is we say, like, we want you to create a world, and we want you to create the entryway into the world through these characters. So there's ways to, Fearsome Dr. Fang and the 7 Deadly Sins are pretty easy in terms of, after that first arc, it's just a second mission for the second arc. Goodnight Paradise, what I love about it is it's truly a world that you're dropped into, and one that actually exists, in real life, but it's a version of it that you're looking at from the inside. And I would love to return to that world and see if there's another story in there. And Sarah as well. There's so many stories of Garth has encyclopedic knowledge of World War II. I remember when we met him the second time, and you were talking about one of your relatives who was in the army, and he was like, during World War II, and he was like, oh, that means that during 1942, he pointed it to us, and then he would have been there in 1943.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. That was
And then,
impressive.
like, within a minute, within 2 sentences, he overtook me in like knowledge of my own family. Maybe you can tell me what happened to that. So I think what's interesting also when Z's talking about worlds is that there's different ways you can make a sequel. It's, it doesn't necessarily, for example, in the case of Goodnight Paradise, if there was another story, it might be a story about set in Venice, set about Venice, doesn't, or Seven Deadly Sins or Dr. Fong, like even Sarah, like the worlds are kind of what you would be returning to. It might be completely different cast of characters and what have you. So I think we're open to all of that. From the start, we've been working on the first 2 waves for a couple of years now. You want to kind of fan out and get the books out there into people's hands and see which one of these even potentially has legs as a sequel. And also we want to get more writers, more artists, more creators on board. So I think for the first couple of waves, we're probably going to potentially hold off with the sequel, but I would go back and work on any one of these books and try to get another story out of them.
Thanks. One of the things we talked about early on was that every comic book gets optioned, but it's also, I come from the film and TV world, so I know that happens, and I'm not really in a rush to do it. I mean, right now, obviously there's a lot of people who come from entertainment and try to make it in comic books. They think of comic books as lost leaders for the film and TV adaptations. Because of that, they skimp on every aspect of the creation of the comic book. So you essentially have a not great comic book that then you're going to try to sell as a film and TV show. We knew that if we were going to do this, that we had to focus on just making great comics first and foremost. And right now we are really focused on making great comics, putting those comic books out there, selling them as books and comic books, and we'll cross that bridge at some point. But that opportunity is always there. But we didn't want to do this if we couldn't become profitable in comic books, because I think it's a slippery slope where, if you're not profitable in comic books, or you're banking on something that might not end up happening. So we bet on the quality of the books, and we bet on the quality of the creators, and that's what we're really focused on right now.
Are there any?
And the company was just bought by Netflix. Just kidding.
Congrats. Are there any genres in particular that you want to see done in the future TKO, or are you open to anything?
We're really open to anything. I mean, for us, it's more like, what is the take on this genre?
Mm-hmm.
What is the new thing, on the twist on this genre? And that's what's really exciting.
And this is kind of unique in that these aren't creator-owned books. Is that right?
No, they're work for hire, but we build in a lot of the protections that you would get if you had a creator-owned book. When I created the agreements with Sal, when I created the agreements, I was trying to create the agreements that I would want if I was on the other side of the table. The creators have, we match Marvel and DC's page rates, and they have a great back end, and that back end is super, super transparent. It was really important to us that we created something that was a really transparent way of accounting, because very often that is not the case.
Yeah, I think that was all the first conversations we had when we were like, what would it take for a new kind of comic company? And I was like, there's payment back end, there's the direct market that is just figure out a way. Because I always thought we'd figure out a way to exist within it. It's been in comics for 10 years and no one has ever tried to change it. And then Zeke came back with how about this deal for creators, and also we go outside Diamond. I was just like, yeah, that sounds awesome. No idea. I would never have thought that they would come back with something with plan so radical. So I was just like, oh, that sounds pretty good.
That's phenomenal. Great. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything else?
Where can we find you on the show floor?
We are just wandering. We're kind of doing a little bit of scouting, and we're just kind of walking around looking at Artist Alley. And this is my first time here. It's so fun. I'm blown away by the talent in Artist Alley. So that's kind of what we're doing this year. I think probably next year we'll start doing a booth, but then we'll have maybe 8, maybe 12 books. So that'll make a little more sense for us. You can also find us. So we're on TKOpresents.com. All this weekend, we're doing a coupon for 10% off, EC10, 10% off all of our books, including pre-orders. So the Banks, Sentient, the Jeff Lemire Gabriel Walter book, you can pre-order those. And follow us at TKO Presents. We really try to do a great job on our Instagram. a lot of like exclusive art drops.
Thanks for watching. If you like that TKO panel, you're going to like our interview with Joshua Dysart where we talk about Goodnight Paradise. Check this out, right over here.